because it helps build the immune system, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. The tea is also organic and naturally caffeine-free. A 1-pound package of tea is $49.95, which includes shipping. To order, please visit TaheeboTeaClub.com. Taheebo is spelled T like Tom, A-H-E-E-B like boy, O, then continue with the word tea and then the word club. The complete website is TaheeboTeaClub.com, or call us at 818-610-8088, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. California time. That's 818-610-8088, TaheeboTeaClub.com.
Welcome to the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan, a brand new show about labor and worker issues. The host of the show is Randy Corrigan, Secretary Treasurer and Principal Office and leader of Teamsters 1932, one of the largest public sector labor unions on the West Coast, representing workers in government and non-sworn law enforcement personnel. Randy Corrigan is a 30-year Teamster who first became involved in the labor movement by volunteering his time as an organizer with the Teamsters Union at the age of 21. Since then, he's helped thousands organize, mobilize, and achieve bargaining rights. He accomplished this by spending countless hours with brave men and women all over Southern California, in their living rooms, on the picket line, to bring workers towards victory. This is the Worker Power Hour. And now here's the host of the show, Randy Corrigan.
Welcome back. This is the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan on the Teamsters Local 1932 Broadcast Network, airing live from San Bernardino. And this time, we mean live. I know last week you missed us as far as it being an absolute live show. It was a new show, but it wasn't technically live, so we had a little fun with it. And I'm going to remind you that we are live today. Longtime organizer, first-time radio host, sophomore radio host now. I guess we're in our second year. And
did you graduate?
I did. I graduated from first time, but I can't say longtime organizer, sophomore radio host. I got to say longtime organizer, first-time radio host because it sounds better.
I think I'll just keep it as a tagline.
Yeah, longtime organizer, first. I can't think of a tagline of longtime organizer, first-time radio host that can stretch on for a long time, but still sounds good.
First time radio host, you always have a cushion for error there.
Yeah, what's first time?
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a year.
Define,
so yeah, I'm going to stop defending myself here.
Define
long time
first
organizer, first time radio host. That's the way it is. Thank you very much we've settled the debate. Appreciate it. Anyway, last week's show was a great show. We were joined by Maggie Mullooly. She's a communications director for the Philadelphia AFL-CIO. She talked about the strike that garnered national attention there in Philly. You know, it's going to garner national attention when the trash piles up on the mayor's doorstep. And you know, all the fun aside, you know, seeing workers just throw down and withhold their labor in a city like Philly. Good for them. So proud of them. And ironically, we had filmed, or we had aired that show, recorded it the day before, and then it got settled the next morning. So I want to take credit for it. Like, they knew it was going to air on our show, so they settled the strike. That's going to be my story. They knew it was coming on the Worker Power Hour, so as a result, they settled that strike that very next morning. They had heard. As a matter of fact, we had an announcement out, and we were you know, floating it. Anyway, I'm taking credit for something we obviously didn't do, but heck, it's fun. I've learned in today's environment, you could say whatever you want, man. You can just take credit for things you actually didn't do. So we might as well have a little fun with it. Anyway, it was great to have her on the show. She did a great job of explaining all the job classifications similar to many which we represent at the local. And it was really, you know, empowering to hear how these workers are coming together and obviously showing and identifying how underpaid many of them were. And the requirements that were coming with the job. So thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on, Maggie, and we really appreciate the story that was told. We also were joined by Tricia Keeling, an advocate with the Together for Redlands group that advocates for issues facing the Redlands residents of Redlands. We talked about her advocacy, their advocacy as a whole on the local level, their amazing grassroots campaign, and how they are taking on Redlands School Board to stop the passage of discriminatory policies. We actually have a lot of members and staff members that are actually engaged with this group and helping out, and so more power to them. Really appreciate her coming on the show and sharing her story as well. And this is a reminder that you are on KCAA 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. We are now separating our announcements, because I'll tell you again that we are going to be airing, I think it's next week, on another radio station. And so we're having to separate so that they can cover when we're airing on their radio station, they can cover and make sure their call letters and numbers are identified when we do the KCAA. Of course, we always appreciate the partnership and relationship with KCAA that birthed our show, and we appreciate that in many different ways. And, we'll always be a great partner with KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. However, we are growing, and we're not going to turn away from that potential growth, and we're looking forward to it. In addition to, in August, we are going to be rolling out Worker Power Radio, and you are going to have the ability to listen to music and some union content 24/7. You're going to be able to stream Worker Power Radio. We're working through all the programming issues right now, obviously planning out how that's going to work and making sure that the vast majority of the time is good radio, good music. And our tagline, I think we've landed on Worker Power Radio, music for working people. Or we may play with this a little bit. Worker Power Radio, the music workers listen to. Something like that for workers. It's good music for people working hard all day, where they can tune in and listen and then get a little bit of news, get a little bit of information, get a little bit of good information about unions, about the Teamsters, and maybe some content. We'll toss in some content every now and then. Do you want to add something here, Mark?
I don't know. I think you should have a contest. Name the network.
We could. Well, I mean, obviously
not the network, but the slogan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll definitely take suggestions. Anybody who wants to throw some ideas out there, we're more than willing to. Don't forget, you can always contact us at radioshow@teamsters1932.org. So if you want to send in your suggestions, send them in there. And we really are celebrating very wide listenership. It's getting bigger and bigger. A shout out to Robert. Robert has been doing a phenomenal job of taking small clips from the show with our new camera here, right? The camera that I'm complaining about. It's a great camera, but now I got to go get some plastic surgery done on my face or something. Anyway, he's taking these clips and he's sending them out into the social media world, and people are obviously getting a taste of the clip and then coming back and listen to more of the show. So that's really helping a lot of people be able to see some of the content or be able to connect to the show on a right away. So Robert, great job at making sure that you're getting the message out. So the next thing I want to move on to is our live shout outs. Listening live, we have Lorraine Robinson and Mira Cordova from TAD. We also have Michael Aragon from CFS. We have Saidul Shawardouri, from ARMC. I hope I did that one right, and I apologize if I butchered it. Elizabeth Didao from Child Support. Carla. Oh, we had Carla on the show just a couple weeks ago from Public Guardians. Good to hear you listening in live, Carla Banninger. We also have Kyle Monsoon and Warren Pennington from the Desert Water Agency. Sorry, I got to scroll over here and make sure that I get to the rest of these names here. From Del Rosa TAD, we have Tina Avalos Morgan. We have ITD. We also have Karen Tinsley and John Gutierrez. We also have Jeremy Lopez and Sandy Cabrera from ARMC. I miss Trish Flores from Rialto Tad, my computer was not letting me scroll up far enough. I think it was user error, not necessarily the computer's fault. Jeremy Lopez and Sandy Cabrera, maybe I already said that from ARMC. Lisa Vasquez and Noni Thompson, we had her on the show. Ivan Cruz, EWs and OAs at TAD, 01 for enduring and being able to provide amazing customer service to all the customers during the revamp. Also, Fontana TAD, Rhea Chrysalis, and TAD 02, Jason Nugent. We also have all the way out, I think in the desert, we have, in Needles, Katrina Cato with Public Health. She is covering Needles this week. Oh, Cato, you are all the way out there. Holy smokes. Krista Cunner and Amanda Montoya and Chaz Kelly, and then the GME department, all from ARMC. Thanks for listening in live. We appreciate you all listening in live, and we can see our live listenership rising faster and faster, and let's keep it up. And obviously, if you want to have your name mentioned or you want to be recognized or your department wants to be recognized for listening in live, we will definitely do a live shout out for you. So next part of the show are member highlights. We want to recognize the incredible work the mid-managers at the city of San Bernardino do, who make the city function behind the scenes. Their work often goes unnoticed, but they perform critical tasks such as program and project management, policy implementation, budget oversight, special projects, and other administrative duties. Here's just a few we'd like to highlight today. Animal Service Manager. They plan and evaluate the performance of assigned staff and review and evaluate methods and procedures, and they meet with key staff to identify and resolve potential issues. Police Dispatch Manager. So now you have all these dispatchers, but you also have a manager that's got to obviously manage a very difficult job. That's it's like having difficulty on top of difficulty. They control and manage the work of police communication staff, participate in establishing and implementing operational plans, processes, work programs, and initiatives to meet department goals and objectives, participate in developing and monitoring performance against the annual departmental budget. Obviously, got to do the financial side of things. An associate planner, they plan, organize, conduct research studies, and prepare reports for development proposals involving current and long-range planning issues and development applications such as plot plans, subdivisions, and model home complexes. And I missed some live shout-outs, by the way. I got Ryan Franking all the way out in the middle of the desert in Arizona. Thank you, Ryan, a retiree, always listening in live, as well as I have Beatrice Garcia listening in live as well. Thank you, B, for listening in live. And I don't know if you're listening or watching us, but I pointed at you if you're listening in live. On the member highlights, the mid-managers for San Bernardino, they just ratified their contracts. So check out our social media and website for the details regarding that. Congratulations to that group. And then I'm going to move on to some victories within the local union for us to lay out. A lot of good stuff going on across the organization. City of Loma Linda, productive day at the bargaining table. Desert Water Agency, another productive day at the bargaining table. We had a good VO out on a company campaign, so some organizers, volunteer organizers out knocking on doors, participating. 1932 joined a whole lot of picket lines in the last week and a half. That was the Ready Mix strike line as well as the Republic strike. I'll talk about that in the news here in a few minutes at some point later on. But really want to congratulate and thank our local staff for getting out there and our volunteers helping Local 25 extend a picket line all the way from Boston to Anaheim and help hold that line down. So also last week, finalized a grievance for a member in the nurse supervisors unit. She was denied repayment for a license renewal filed on behalf of that member and all others impacted, and the reimbursement was for $120, and the side letter was generated to ensure that was going to be corrected going forward. worked with staff dispatchers to change their break schedules. They are consistently working 14-hour shifts while numerous new hires are in training and asked to incorporate a 10-minute break at the 14th hour into the last normally scheduled break to allow more time away from the dispatch terminal to eat, make phone calls, and de-stress before going back and finishing their shifts. So after meetings with supervision and HR, the department agreed to honor the dispatcher's suggested break schedule and put out a memo last week. Great job. No better group to advocate for, and it's good to see that the team is always making progress there. Employer recently approved a significant increasing wages along with a new title, made the argument for member and received back pay for multiple pay periods, helped a member craft a message to impact their ability to promote. So that's our just quick victories, and definitely want to give a shout out to all of you that are constantly participating in the activities at the local union and engaging in the stuff that we do. The next point I want to point out is a fun fact, and this isn't one that's so fun. It's actually one of those points that you have to point out in history that has to do with labor that is quite, sometimes disturbing. And the name of this is the Repatriation Act from 1929 to 1936. You are going to be shocked when I read this. Like, this is what happened to people in this time period. Matter of fact, actually, when you look at it, we've actually noticed this has been happening to people about every 20 years. It happened in the 30s, happened in the 50s again. It happened in the 70s, happened again in the 90s, and it's happening today. But a lot of the activity that's going on right now is pulling up. We have to take a look at some of this and kind of, point out our history and point out some facts. And the Repatriation Act, which I think is crazy to even call it this, we all know that giving some things a label like this doesn't necessarily mean it's good. But when the Great Depression hit the United States, it looked for a scapegoat and found it in the Mexican community. Mass roundups and deportation of Mexicans took place with the excuse that jobs would thereby be saved for real Americans. Barrios disappeared as the racist cry sounded, "Get rid of the Mexicans, send them home." They were called repatriation campaigns, but 75% of the children deported were actually U.S. citizens, born here who knew nothing of Mexico. Parents and children were separated for years, some forever. Back then, the term Mexican was a label given based on the color of someone's skin and not the place of your birth or legal status. They were identified as the enemy, and some government officials came up with the banner, "American Jobs for Real Americans." All of a sudden, Mexicans were responsible for the economic problems of the nation, and the government came up with a solution: deport as many Mexicans, not foreigners in general, only Mexicans. One of the main reasons was because they were the closest to the border and it was cheaper to deport them. Well, thousands and thousands and thousands of people were caught up in that, and thousands of families were caught up in that. And it just, you got to look back. We're going to point to something that also happened at a later show in the 1950s. It's actually, you're going to be shocked at a later show when we bring this up and we tell you what the label of that actual government operation was. But so as you see these things that are happening in America right now, which leads into the news where farm workers call for a worker-led strike right now, we're going to have somebody from the farm workers on in the second hour to talk about the strike that they're calling for July 16th through, I think it's the 19th. And I think that this really ties into recognizing how is it that this cycle keeps happening in America where we keep trying to villainize a culture or villainize a group of people. And, and we see these pretty crazy things that most people clearly don't agree with. I get we got the policy sort of debate that we can get into, but quite frankly, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to how we got to be careful not to repeat history all over again, especially this act that was passed and actually between 1929 and 1936. Like, it was law. We got to go do this. Like, so, we're not always kind as the way we do things. So I think it's really important for us to, pay attention and do the best that we can to not repeat the past as much as we can. So with that, I think that leads us to a short break before we go to our next guest, which I believe is Shalinda Bernard, the executive director of the UCR Labor Center. And looking forward to having her on the show here briefly. We'll literally take like a 30, 60-second break. Mark, can you take a break? Take us.
For KCAA 1050 AM, NBC News Radio, and Express 106.5 FM. Field investigation work is beginning in preparation for construction of the Bright Line West high-speed rail line connecting the Inland Empire and Las Vegas. Geotechnical borings and samplings, utility potholing, and land surveying is underway near the I-15 and Route 210 interchange. Brightline says the work complies with environmental regulations, primarily during daytime, with some work at night. The city of Victorville has deployed new gunshot detection technology in 2 neighborhoods with the most gun-related calls for service. The acoustic system detects gunfire and triangulates its location within seconds to quickly bring police and emergency medical response, increase criminal investigation success, and improve patient outcomes. The city is the first in San Bernardino County to implement the technology. It has solved 3 gun-related incidents that were non-verbally reported to 911. The city of Moreno Valley has received $25 million in funding to secure the right-of-way for the SR-60 World Logistics Center Parkway Interchange project. The grant falls under the State of California Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. The grant is part of a larger initiative in Southern California and the Inland Empire that aims to enhance safety, relieve congestion, reduce travel time, and improve trip reliability and improve movement of goods and people. Weather in the Inland Empire will have the highs in the high 80s and the overnight lows in the low 60s. For NBC News Radio, KCAA 1050 AM and Express 106.5 FM, I'm Lillian Vasquez, and you're up to date. KCAA, keeping California alert and aware.
Back. This is Randy Corrigan in the Worker Power Hour and the Teamsters Local 1932 Broadcast Network, live from San Bernardino. We have a guest, and our guest is Shalinda Bernard. She's the executive director of the UCR Labor Center. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Looking forward to you coming on the show. What do you think? First of all, if you're the executive director of the Labor Center, you got our own Worker Power Hour, you got our own live radio show. Obviously, I'm sure you see our billboards and everything else we're doing. What we're trying to do is really get the message out to the general public to where they understand how important unions are to the community, and really just make sure that we can do the best we can at pounding a good narrative. Because, if corporate America controls the narrative, we lose. If we control the narrative, workers win. So with that, you want to introduce yourself, Shalinda?
Yes. So as you said, I'm the executive director at the Labor Center, but I also come from labor. I spent 12 years at the County of Riverside, where I was a member of SEIU 721 and was the regional vice president for the last 6 or 7 years there before I came over to UC Riverside. So I understand what it means to have workers at the table and make sure that workers are at the forefront of a lot of what's happening in the world.
So for listeners, explain what the Labor Center is at UCR, what it does.
So what our Labor Center does is we do a lot of community-based research. We like to do a lot of work within labor unions to give the workers the power to take the information that we do research on and use that for themselves. So we want to put the power back to the workers to say, like, here are the industries that we want to look at. Here's what's going on in the Inland Empire. What you'll find is a lot of research around, and I come from the IE for years. LA is always the example, or they'll tell you something that's happening in Orange County or the Bay. But what we noticed was we lacked those resources in the Inland Empire. And so we're structured to really build worker power and to raise the next generation of organizers at UCR. And that's what we're there to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The Inland Empire is massive. It's big. It's actually a very large metropolitan area that gets ignored because of the Los Angeles basin. We've got this tether to the LA basin that we don't have our own news channels. We don't have our own identity. We don't have our own government centers. We don't have all these things. There should be some level of separation, not because, we feel entitled to it, but because it's big. And man, when I got to go to the National Labor Relations Board, Region 31 on the west side, man, it takes 3.5, 4 hours to get across traffic. And let's say you're in Victorville or you're out in Lucerne. Like you gotta go all the way to the west side of LA, or if you're in, let's say, Coachella, you gotta go to Region 21, which is on Figueroa, down in downtown LA, right? Like again, those are just labor buildings,
Yes.
but that is the same is true with a lot of entities, and the Inland Empire needs to build its own identity because of we have the population, 4.5 million people.
Yep. We do. People often forget when we're talking about the Inland Empire, it's not one county, it's two. And we stretch and we touch 2 states. We literally touch LA, we touch Arizona, we touch Nevada, we touch San Diego, Imperial. Like, we are very vast and very wide in the low desert, the high desert. There's all these different things. And so
And very diverse.
extremely diverse. So to tie us all in with LA, and we're like, what do we always say? We're not LA out here.
Oh, I just had somebody remind me we can't see you because my little toy here, I made the mistake. There we go. Hey, thanks to a listener live texting me going, Randy, we can't see her. Hey, shame on you two in the studio. Right. We were all looking at her and we weren't looking at the screen here. Our apologies for not
It's
getting
okay.
you on the camera.
It
I don't
happens.
control the camera.
Yeah, but you're looking. You got a screen
out.
sitting in front of you.
I'm bailing
Anyway,
out.
we're all passing blame here. Look at
Yes.
this. I'm sorry for interrupting
No,
you.
you're
Anyway,
fine.
we needed to make sure we got you on the camera.
No, you're fine. Yeah. So that's one of the really important things about doing work and doing research within the Inland Empire. What we typically were finding was that our students at UC Riverside were getting their education here in the Inland Empire. They were growing up in the Inland Empire. But guess what? What do most of our kids do?
They take it
leave.
somewhere else.
Yep. And we're trying to find ways to show them there are jobs here that you can work and you can make good paying jobs here. And so that's what a lot of our research and data likes to back up.
Yeah, I really, I couldn't agree with you more that, and you guys issue a lot of reports,
We do.
correct?
Yes.
Like, I think you did the state of work report a
Yes,
few
we did.
years back. That was one of my favorites. Did a really good job of laying out the type of work in the Inland Empire, how business has really gotten what they've wanted in this exchange, but workers have not. And it really spells out the shortchanging of workers in the process, as well as you've done, like the state of education in the area, I believe. You've done a number of reports where you've tried to bring up an awareness around that.
Yes, we have. In our recent report, the State of Worker, which honestly, we just hosted here at your hall across the way in June, we had a conversation about, we're used to looking at the different types of jobs in the Inland Empire, but this one was more about the workers in the Inland Empire, their education level, the types of jobs that they were more frequently to go after, and where they would fall in line. And what we found was, while the lower wage jobs, of course, are increasing, our middle class is shrinking in the Inland Empire. It was disappearing. And so that is the biggest gap that we're now seeing in the Inland Empire.
I obviously believe that workers need to organize a union, many of them need to withhold their labor in that process.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're at a point where corporations are being so greedy that it's really going to take some sort of labor disruption for an employer to finally come around and pay a wage where a worker can buy a home, or they can buy goods and services within the community. But you know, clearly you're pointing to the fact that American dream, or that dream of what somebody believes should be good for their family, is becoming more and more of a distant vision versus it getting closer and closer as time goes on. Isn't that what the studies are showing?
Yes, it is. It's harder to buy a house. I live in the city of Moreno Valley, where we are selling houses now for $800,000, right? At the end of the day, if wages aren't increasing, how do we expect this to keep up? How are we expecting our children to be able to move forward and buy homes? And what we're also finding is that you're having multiple families living in homes to be able to make rent and things like that. So,
and there's a devaluing of a lot of these jobs you're referring to, which is a huge mistake, an enormous mistake. Devaluing these important jobs in our community and saying, well, you know, they don't need a college education, or they don't need this, or they don't need that. That is part of the reason why it's created a sag in those wages, on top of corporations being extremely greedy.
yes, and there's also this attitude of the Inland Empire doesn't cost very much to live. The housing is cheaper, rent is cheaper, everything is cheaper in the Inland Empire. And we know, and we have the data to support, that's not true. We also know that at a time it was cheaper, then everyone left LA. Everyone left Orange County because they got priced out. And what's it done to the Inland Empire? It sent our prices up. So we have to get back to centering the worker at these conversations. I'm very much like you. When it was time to go on strike, I tell everybody it's going to hurt, but how else are you going to make them respect you and listen to the workers and make sure that the workers have a seat at the table?
Yeah, you know, you're obviously singing our tune here. So question for you, how can the public get involved to help you?
They can look us up on social media at the Inland Empire Labor Center. They can also help us we have our event coming up on August 5th, which is our end of the year celebration, where we take our students who have spent 8 weeks in a fellowship at different labor unions and community-based organizations learning about organizing, and come and just celebrate them. They can also just follow us on social media and see the type of work that we put out and what we do. And that's the easiest way to do it. We do a number of trainings from Know Your Rights, immigrant rights, how to read a pay stub to spot wage theft. That's actually something we do with a lot of our students. That is really helpful. And we sit there and go, can you see where the wage theft is? Can they tell you to go buy a uniform without giving you the money for the uniform? And we do that. And it's a really popular program that we run with our students.
So you mentioned the IE Labor Center, which is different than UCR, correct?
Yes, so we're housed within UCR, but we are a separate entity. We are there to serve the work of the people, which is not always in alignment with UC Riverside that would love the business school and not too excited about us.
Well, yeah, you know, of course it's always interesting, you know, the business environment, or, you know, corporate environment, like they will capitalize on every holiday in America, right, for retail, but they certainly didn't line up in Congress to get it passed, right?
No.
Like they were on the opposite side saying, no, as well as they opposed every rule or law to protect workers or the community, but let's say it's our groundwater or whatever it may be. Corporate America, big business, the business interests, show me when they put a rule on the books to help workers out. Like, give me one example in 249 years that they led, that they said this is going to help working people. They opposed every rule that workers or movements of workers or movements of people fought and pushed for. They opposed every single one of them, and then, you know, try to obviously take advantage of what those things are once they get passed. But then the flip side is, you know, it's like, oh, you can't put rules on us, right? Like, if you just let us do whatever whatever we want, we're going to take care of everybody who works for us.
Yeah, and
I don't believe them.
I don't believe a word of that. Everybody wanted this country to be ran as a business, and we're seeing what's happening when you run this country as a business currently. People are losing their jobs. They're not telling them how they're going to retrain them or what jobs are coming back. They're just, we're just going to cut what they've determined is waste. And I don't think people or jobs are waste.
Yeah, look, I love this debate. Like, it's not a debate with us, obviously, but with others where we get into this space of they just said, just let us do what we're going to do right by everybody. If you look at 249 years of history, they have not been good. Like, whenever you just, you give them free reign, they're really, really bad. And they've got a horrible track record. Obviously, the first 100 years started out with slavery, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, they thought it was okay to own labor, period. Like, clearly wrong. Then the next almost 100 years, there were no rules on the books. It wasn't until 1934 that any rule to protect workers finally landed, in law at some place. And they have railed against it ever since. It's not even been 100 years of that. So, the business community, as much as they say we got to run the government like a business, I'm sorry, but you got a terrible track record. That is actually not what you're supposed to do. Running the government like a business means that you're running something for profit. And you can see in the healthcare industry, by running the healthcare industry for profit, you're killing people.
Yeah.
Straight up, right? So now if you want to run the government for profit, then you're not doing it for the people. You're doing it for someone else's benefit. And when you really look at the amount of tax subsidies and tax incentives and redirect of tax revenue, discretionary tax revenue being pulled out of every local community, which is the billions of dollars in every small community here, seeing all that money being extracted out. Business is just taking money out of the system. Now, I'm not targeting small business owners like the mom and pops up and down Main Street. Matter of fact, I was having this nice little debate with a small business owner here recently who kind of fallen into the trap of corporate America messaging and narrative. And I pointed out all the huge tax breaks that these big businesses in their city get, in that person's city. And I was like, see the millions of dollars that this company got in tax breaks. What that city should do is, instead of giving it to those big corporations and those big businesses, if they're going to give away that money, take it, break it up, and give it to all the small business owners, right?
Yeah.
Give it to all the small business owners. Give it to all the mom and pops. I mean, these mom and pops are trying to compete on a level that's already difficult. Then they have to compete with billions of dollars in tax money being pulled out of a local economy, and then trying to claim, oh, no, we're the good guys.
Yeah, and that's often what I see is the problem. I mean, I know you do a lot of work within organizing Amazon, but I mean, Jeff Bezos, I know Jeff Bezos and his wife spent how much? Like, there's no shortage of money.
$56 million. No one's counting.
Yes, and he needed to get his yacht through a certain area, so they just disassembled the bridge
Right.
and was like, that's nothing, right? So I always look at people like, if you really think that business people and billionaires in particular care about us, how do they treat their workers?
So let's use Amazon as a quick example. I've been actually using this example. Everybody's blown away by it. So you take an Amazon driver versus a UPS driver. A UPS driver who makes a delivery in every neighborhood in America can typically afford to buy a home in almost any one of those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
An Amazon driver cannot buy a home in any neighborhood in America. In any neighborhood. They're not paid enough money to buy a home. Period. That is an absolute slap in the face when it comes to this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, when's enough? Like, somehow that person is celebrated for that?
Yeah, because that's all part of the American dream that they've sold us on, which is we should all attain to do this thing of becoming a millionaire or a billionaire, and you don't need to worry about people. I always think that when I think about workers and I think about just the people in general, profit over people is a real thing. And that's what that shows me with Amazon. It's profit over people. And just like we've talked about with the government, power to the people. We've somehow forgotten that. And that's what's gotten left behind, especially in the Inland Empire.
So how do we turn the tide for workers in the IE? Obviously, we could say what all workers need to do across the country. We don't have control over that. No. But we got a little say in that space in the IE. What do you say? What do we got to do to turn the tide?
We really need to start continuing to build on worker solidarity. We need to continue to build at crossroads and intersections where we can, whether that's environmental justice and immigrant rights justice. And those intersections of us working together, I think will actually start to build us in the Inland Empire. I'm also a big believer in boycotting things that are not helpful to us. So I don't have a problem. Like, I've been boycotting Target now. We're going on 7 months after they got rid of their diversity programs. And I'm a big believer in the best way to get to the billionaire, millionaire class and certain business owners is to hurt their pocketbooks economically.
I couldn't agree with you more, but that's why I think we got to take it a step further, and we got to get into massive strikes where we're withholding our labor on a large scale. I know the farm workers today just called for, not the farm workers, but the workers themselves, not necessarily the union, called for a massive strike. But the workers are saying, enough's enough. Like, you can't be doing what you're doing. We actually have a guest coming on the show later. I'm going to get into more detail on this. But workers are saying, hey, we got to withhold our labor. And the point is that your point of big business doesn't pay attention until their pocketbook is affected. And so if people don't go to work for not just a day or a few hours, we're going to have to shut some things down for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to be weeks where it's a hard sacrifice. It's going to be tough for a lot of people, but we're going to have to withhold our labor for a long enough period of time that it starts to correct this situation that's going on right now.
Yes, and I'm fully in support
I say
of us
we start in
all
the
withholding our
IE.
work.
We shut the IE down.
We
tomorrow.
should. We honestly should do that, and I
We can
think
affect the whole
we
country.
Have to, we can, but we have to prepare them for that. Because I always tell people, it's never going to be easy. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. When I went out on strike, it hurts. But the point is, it's the greater good that we're concerned about, and the greater good is what we're pushing for.
Yeah, and clearly, when workers get to a point where there's nothing to lose, then there's nothing to lose anymore. So might as well just withhold the labor in mass, right?
Yeah.
And corporate America better be careful. They're moving in that direction like rapidly.
A lot faster than I thought they would, but I always remind people there are always more of us than there are of them.
You know, when I'm talking to workers and we're strategizing on what they can do and what power they have, one of the things I always explain to them is if you're looking at, because they always use it as, they usually context this is a war, like, oh, we're at war with our company. And, you know, sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not. But if I say, look, if we're going to use the example of war and you're going to tell me that this is a war with your employer, you already won because you completely have infiltrated the battlefield. You 100% control the operation. You know how to do everything. And if you all get together, you can actually completely cripple the company. So you've already won the war. You've just not exercised your ability to do it.
Yes, that's a good analogy. I've never thought about it like that.
Well, you learned it on the Worker Power Hour.
Yes, I did.
Look, I'm really leaning into this. As much as I see, I'll give you an example, the TSA workers. My personal opinion, if I represented the TSA workers, I would have demanded everybody go on strike the next day.
Yeah.
You're going to strip away the collective bargaining rights of all of them. Then
Yeah,
we're not
nothing
going to
to
work.
lose.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, if they try to take away collective bargaining from the members I represent anywhere in the jurisdiction I represent, I'm going to tell them the next day, don't go to work. We're putting a picket line up. Withhold your labor. Make them realize how powerful it is. And the other example would be in Utah. They stripped away the Utah legislature stripped away public sector workers' rights to bargain. Imagine if that following Monday, no police officers, no firefighters, no public employees went to work. They would fix that problem within a day.
Well, yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be a run on the bank.
It's true. You saw how quickly they fixed the issue in Philadelphia. people were tired of their trash piling up, and they came to the table and they figured it out within a week.
They sure did. Amazing what a little bit of trash will do.
Yeah. So I think workers have to push the limits. It's what I tell our students and our fellows, which is you have to be willing to push the limits. You have to be willing to sacrifice something to get whatever that is done.
So what's it going to take? I know I keep asking it, but how do we turn this tide? Like, I think we got to keep agitating. We got to keep educating. Obviously, you can see, we've got buses, we've got billboards, we've got a radio station. We obviously are doing what we're doing here right now. I don't know if we're on Monday through Friday. And what we're doing is trying to agitate everybody else in labor into this space to do the same thing. And I challenge the Inland Empire Labor Council, which you're obviously a part of, right, to do the same thing. They need to have billboards. They need to be on this show. They need to have their own time slot. We can host them on the show. We can get for very minimal cost per week, per month. We can have their own time slot. My goal is to eventually have a radio station that is 100% labor all day long. Imagine that, workers, that they can tune in at any point to hear different perspectives, other unions, other organizations, other coalitions that are actually partnering to help labor. And we're going to have to take this holistic approach to really move in a community as a whole. I don't know. I'm starting to get all fired up on this and asking what people can do. And hopefully you can help do that.
Yeah, so I think we have to continue to educate. We have to continue to listen, because I think listening to people is very important to gauge where everyone is. And we have to keep pushing back on their narrative that they're spinning out there about labor and workers. Because, the attitude is you guys can be lazy, or if we can't afford to pay you these things. We have to start pushing back on that narrative, and we have to get people really honestly pissed off about it.
Well, I'm going to, I know we don't know each other very well. We do know of each other, and appreciate all the work that you do. I'm just going to push back a little bit simply because although I agree with what you're saying, I also think that sometimes we're our own worst enemy in labor too. And I'll give you an example. Like those of us that are pushing aggressively, the rest of labor needs to listen. They're not participating completely. They're not engaging. Where are they? Let's go. It's time.
But especially because you run a labor union, that we do sometimes operate in silos, and we also only worry about our members. And so there has to be that conversation, which is the point of Labor Council, where everyone's sitting down, and that 1, 2, 3 meetings. I sat on their executive board for a few years also. That's where these conversations have to happen about how we're going to push the narrative. The same way I tell people you have to push your electeds. You have to bend them to your will, whereas they've been used to bending us to their will, and that's no longer the game plan.
Yeah, so when you push and you're pushing on your peers, sometimes they turn away from you.
And that's why sometimes in labor we're like a big family where we've just got to
we
just got to keep pushing
That's
each
right,
other.
right. I
We
agree.
can't quit because they said no a few times. It takes a few months.
Or a few years.
A few
Sometimes
years.
a few decades.
It does, but we also can't keep ignoring the conversation.
We won't, which is why we're doing what we're doing. And again, I'm not trying to self-grandize here or
you're
pat
not.
myself on the back. What I'm doing is I'm trying to challenge. As an organizer, I've always learned that if I kind of push the envelope and try to ask an organization to move along a little bit, or workers, that you will quickly see who's willing to kind of rise to the occasion and who's willing not to, right? Yeah. And so, again, the reason I kind of did that was, hey, I need your help helping me press the rest of labor in the Inland Empire to do these similar things, for us to continue to move in this space and be as aggressive as possible. Hey, and if I'm missing the boat on something that's not aggressive enough, man, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll be there to learn and figure out what we got to do a little different. So anyway, I'm just venting a little bit of what we can do to help move the labor movement a little more too.
Yeah. So no, I'm like you. I'm very much out there. I'm very much aggressive. I'm very much like, let's go and let's go now. If you mention a strike, I'm probably the first one on the line, because that's the funnest part of my life.
I love picket lines.
Yeah.
Man, everybody here that's seen me on a picket line. Yeah. I love, what I love about a picket line is you see firsthand the raw situation where the workers have control.
Yes.
The workers have control. It is theirs. It's theirs.
Yes, and that's the ultimate goal, is to show the workers that the power lies within you. And that's why I think the conversations have to continue to happen. And even though it sucks because we're a family, hey, if one of us is injured, we always say this, if one of us is injured, it's an injury to all of us. And we have to push them to prove that that's a real thing.
So we got to wrap up this segment in a few minutes. Anything you want to just kind of, say or talk about? Instead of me asking a question to provoke it, like what is it that you'd like to, what message would you like to get out? You obviously have got a lot of history in labor. You've been connected to SEIU 721, obviously the Labor Council, other aspects of the labor movement. You're participating. You're active. Again, I'm just throwing things out here.
So the one thing I always think about when we talk about our center is we're always looking at everyone to tell us what can help them. We don't come up with our research projects on our own. We get our research projects from our community partners, from our different unions and community groups. They tell us what they're looking for, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to service you all the best that we can, to do that and move it forward, because we understand our documentation, our research provides the resources that you all need when you're going into a contract negotiation, when you're going into the federal government or the state government trying to prove a point. And that's what we're here to do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Really appreciate the work that you do at the IE Labor Center as well as the UCR Labor Center and being the executive director. I think there's a lot of potential here in the future. I think workers are more ready to be militant than I've ever seen them before. Now, obviously, you get to see this from a front row seat because I happen to be the national director on Amazon, which is the most militant approach to taking on any corporation in America right now. It is beautiful to see workers responding like they are, recognizing, we just got to do something about this. And it's not going to get any better, because most of those workers, when they went to work for that company, they were looking for a job within a few days. And the Inland Empire is full of those jobs. You and I both know, especially being around the IE so long, and me, and lifelong resident, have been extremely disappointed in the exploitation of workers in these warehouses and these production facilities. Yeah. These have turned into sweatshops that everybody has degraded for hundreds of years. And now they're literally right underneath our nose here, and those jobs have been devalued. Workers are ready to do something. They just don't know what to do. They're not sure. And what we found is the sweet spot is that once the workers go, oh, I have the legal right to do that.
Yeah.
It becomes intoxicating for them. Matter of fact, this morning, workers, I haven't been able to check my news feed yet. I'm assuming it's already been out. Isn't that right, Robert? The demand for recognition in industry regarding more drivers that have demanded Amazon respect the majority. You haven't seen it yet? Okay, maybe it came out early right now. It wasn't supposed to. But based on what I was told, that was already supposed to happen this morning. My point is once workers know that they have that right to do it, they're exercising it. They're jumping in and they're getting with it.
Yeah, and as they should. As they should. I think workers are always ready to move, but you don't know what power you have until you know it, which is why we do those trainings with our students before they leave UC Riverside and tell them, like, these are your rights. Do you know how to walk on the boss? We literally train them how to walk on a boss. That's a skill set I never knew till I was a social worker.
That's the lack of information that workers have at understanding what their rights are is by design, again, not being taught in school. And as a result, workers are less likely to be militant because they're not sure what they can do and what they can't do. They think there's actually a large percentage of workers that think being in a union is actually illegal or striking is illegal, which is crazy because withholding your labor at work and going on strike is actually tied to the First Amendment. The First Amendment argument, freedom of speech and freedom to assemble, is what convinced Congress in 1934 to pass the Protected Concerted Activity Act under the Wagner Act. Mm-hmm. Like, all labor laws enshrine that, which was born out of our First Amendment right. And it's crazy that generally everybody's not been educated on that.
No, and that's the other side of it is like this is a lot about education and just educating people, because for the longest I was told unions were bad, and then I got in one and I was like, well, no, it's actually the only way that I know to get my contract negotiated properly.
Unions are the only organization over more than 100 years that have advocated for affordable health care, for a retirement vehicle, for safety on the job, for a great work environment, and reasonable pay to be able to. We're the only consistent advocate in that space, and we've been villainized. I do have to wrap up. I only have 30 seconds here. Okay. This is Randy Corrigan in the Worker Power Hour. Shalinda, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate your work as the executive director of the UCR Labor Center. This is Randy Corrigan in the Worker Power Hour on the Teamsters 1932 Broadcast Network, airing live from San Bernardino. Mark, take it away for the break at the top of the hour.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
NBC News Radio. I'm Chris Coraggio. President Trump is going after his own supporters as backlash continues from the contentious DOJ investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. Today in the Oval Office, Trump said he was surprised some Republicans got duped and followed the Democratic playbook of going after him with false stories like the Russia hoax. The president again stood by Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying she only released what she thought was credible from the Epstein files. A tropical disturbance moving across Florida has a decent chance of becoming a tropical storm. If it does, Tropical Storm Dexter would likely be a low-end system in the Panhandle. It depends on how much time the disturbance stays over warm water. Either way, heavy rains are a potential threat along the northern Gulf Coast from tonight through the weekend. And the first full trailer for Stranger Things 5 is out. Netflix will release the show's final episodes in 3 parts, the first one coming on November 26th, the second one on Christmas Day. The series finale will come out on New Year's Eve. I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
I always hear from our clients who hired another firm that they wish they'd hired DNA Financial first. Don't have regrets about your IRS tax case. Just hire the best in the first place.
One owed $150,000 to the IRS and had spent thousands on another firm. We stopped the levies, negotiated a payment plan, and had their penalties forgiven.
And while every case is different, we guarantee that we'll find your perfect resolution and get it done right.
For a free consultation, call us at 866-201-0156. That's 866-201-0156. Then you can say, DNA did right by me.
This segment sponsored by our friends at the all-new Sammy's Restaurant. Sammy's is now open in Calamasa at Exit 88 off the 10 freeway next to the Jack in the Box in the former Bob's Big Boy Restaurant. Not to name drop, but Sammy's in the former Bob's is a lot like Norm's. It has an extensive menu with multiple restaurants in Rialto and places like Upland and Rancho Cucamonga. Sammy's is a great place to dine. Their menu is very similar with their American trio of delicious steak, shrimp, and chicken, and an expansive menu. You won't go hungry and you won't go broke at Sammy's. You can come meet Sammy and his family. Sammy was a chief cook for Norm's for years, and it shows in his menu. Sammy's is a great place to meet the family, friends, or have a community meeting. You can ask about their private meeting room, available for parties of 15 or more on a first-come, first-served basis. Sammy's is now open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day at 540 Sandalwood Drive off of Exit 88 at the 10 freeway in Calamasa. Look for the Big Boy statue. It's still there. We thank Sammy for returning to this station as a loyal sponsor. You can find more info about Sammy's at sammyscafe.net. That's sammyscafe.net, where you can also find discount coupons to save money. And by the way, Sammy's has free Wi-Fi too. Sammy's in Calamasa, Rialto, or one of their other locations are ready to serve you. Sammy's is now open in Calamasa.
Lillian Vasquez with Community Matters. There are many car clubs and car shows throughout the Inland Empire. I visited a car show in Yucaipa and spoke with David Avila, president of Pass Pleasures Car Club. He shared about the club, its purpose, and when it first began.
Well, it's kind of a debate. We believe that the first organized group was around 1979, but more officially closer to 1986 or 87. We gathered to help celebrate the Southern California car culture of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
David shared the types of cars you might see and, of course, his pride and joy.
We see all kinds of cars from early model hot rods to very, very well-appointed custom cars, all makes and models. We have everything that's pre-80. I have a 1966 Chevelle Malibu, the yellow one here, my pride and joy. But everyone just brings whatever they have. There's several cars that are under various stages of construction and restoration, and we enjoy seeing them and seeing the progress every month that they bring. It's just a wonderful event, and it's a nice family-friendly. We have bubble gum blowing contests, hula hoops, limbo contests. It's just a wonderful family event, and we encourage everybody who has a car or don't have a car, come over here and enjoy the camaraderie that we have, again, celebrating the Southern California car culture.
You don't have to have a car in the show. Spectators and car enthusiasts are encouraged to check out the classics. It's free to attend. The Past Pleasure Car Club shows off their cars the first Friday of the month from April through November, located in the Ross parking lot on Yucaipa Boulevard. For Community Matters, I'm Lillian Vasquez.
This important time-sensitive message is brought to you by this station's generous sponsor, George Litchfield Associates, who has important Medicare information for all current and future Medicare recipients about some big changes happening. Medicare Clarified. Medicare is a nonprofit consumer service organization.
It's more important than ever to review your Medicare plan for 2025 from October 15th through December 7th. To find out if you're in the right plan for you, people are calling 951-769-0005. 951-769-0005. A popular and local Medicare plan is improving. Others are raising copays and adding deductibles. Biggest changes in the Medicare drug program in 15 years.
We thank George Litchfield and Litchfield Insurance for their generous support of this radio station. Welcome to the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan, a brand new show about labor and worker issues. The host of the show is Randy Corrigan, Secretary, Treasurer, and Principal Office and leader of Teamsters 1932, one of the largest public sector labor unions on the West Coast, representing workers in government and non-sworn law enforcement personnel. Randy Corrigan is a 30-year Teamster who first became involved in the labor movement by volunteering his time as an organizer with the Teamsters Union at the age of 21. Since then, he's helped thousands organize, mobilize, and achieve bargaining rights. He accomplished this by spending countless hours with brave men and women all over Southern California, in their living rooms, on the picket line, to bring workers towards victory. This is the Worker Power Hour. And now here's the host of the show, Randy Corrigan.
We're back. This is the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan on the Teamsters 1932 Broadcast Network, airing live from San Bernardino. Don't forget to tune in live, listen live, but you can always listen afterwards at the podcast. But I gotta give a live shout out that's happening right now. My daughter is flying back from studying abroad. She's actually in an airport listening live, and she texts, "Dad, I'm listening live too." So, thanks, kid. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you. You know, she's been flown like 8 or 9 hours, landed on the ground, and then is going to tune in versus catching some naps. So, really appreciate that, kid. Appreciate a number of my children actually listening live or listen to the show after the fact. So they somewhat care what Dad does. Anyway. I also have to, there's a couple things I want to announce. There's a back to school drive happening and my daughter just texted me back. So I love you too, kid. Anyway, a back to school drive for the KSBD parents. Those are the workers at the airport for Amazon in San Bernardino. And there's a donation box up in the front. here at the lobby for you to drop off backpacks, binders, pens, pencils, folders, papers, and more. It's the third annual back to school drive for those workers. Clearly, they unionized last year. Amazon is refusing to negotiate. Big corporation like that. Apparently, Bezos wants to spend $56 million on his wedding, have 15 yachts and something that flies them to the moon or something, yet, doesn't want to pay people, decent wages and working conditions. Anyway, so we like to do things like this and help them, raise funds or resources, especially for those in need that have kids. So this back to school drive is really important, and we really appreciate that. The other thing I want to point out is a save the date. It's a sponsor appreciation night. Join the Inland Empire 66ers for a fun night of baseball on Saturday, July 19th, 2025 for Superhero Night. Character appearances, face painting, giveaways, and more. Enjoy 5 complimentary tickets for anybody connected to us. You have to be part of, obviously you have to be a member of the local union. Imagine that. So is the game on the 19th or is the game on the 28th, Mark?
Should be the 19th.
Yeah.
Saturday the 19th.
Okay. Well, there's another date here, but we'll just make sure it's clear. It's July 19th. It's
Correct.
this Saturday, as I was reading forward.
Oops.
Think about it. 5 tickets for free. You just got to, and the concessions are actually not that expensive there. It's a really good time. Every member I know that has gone there and participated in these events really enjoys it. And if you look over into right field, you get to see the big old Teamster banner there that we sponsor, making sure that we're, again, part of that community. So, and as part of our Teamster Advantage partnership, that's where we built our relationship with the Inland Empire 66ers, as well as more than 1,000 small businesses throughout the Inland Empire. We take great pride in participating in more than 26 chambers of commerce throughout the IE. What we're doing is we're educating the small business community on union members. They typically make more money than non-union, and they're going to contribute more. And we want to make sure that small business survives and participates, and people make good money and can support their family and take them to soccer practice or baseball practice or whatever it is, and then obviously have a decent way of life. And we're proud of this relationship that we've built with the small business community. And today we have a twofer. We have somebody on. We have Nicole on, who is part of Notary Max Plus. Correct, Nicole?
Absolutely.
And she's also a member of the local, so she's a member,
That's
and
right.
you get to represent her as a member, but she's also a Teamster Advantage partner, so she's participating in it. And I love these scenarios because it's a twofer for us. And now we get to celebrate not only the fact that you're a member and you participate in your union, but you got a little small business on the side, and you're trying to do a little extra this and that, and we want to promote that for free. Everybody else charges, so pull that mic a little bit closer to you. Don't be shy.
Is
That's
that
right.
better?
That's right.
Okay.
The small business community needs this kind of stuff, and especially if we're able to broadcast like we are, or we're able to get out to our 30,000+ households. It's nothing but help. So why don't you tell us about your small business, Nicole? And thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for inviting me to come on. I'm Nicole Scales, and I started my notary business back in 2006. So I've been in business for many years. I have a specialty with Notary Max Plus, which is my company, notarymaxplus.com. One of my specialties is estate planning. So making sure that families don't go to probate when their family member transitions. It's a lot of headaches to go and deal with courts and lawyers and
That was such a nice thing you said. They transition.
Yes.
That's a good way to describe it.
Right. Well, I'm a Christian, and that's one of our
There you go.
languages. We transition, right? We go to heaven, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully, that's right. Okay.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I believe that, and so Yeah, that's my company. I'm one of the. I've been in a notary, a mortgage loan officer also, and I've been doing that since 2017. A notary since 2006, and I started to have a passion for working with elderly. You know, just making sure that their affairs are in order. I don't know what it is. It came on me, and I've been helping people. I've been sharing this information in regards to why you need to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, somebody else will have one for you.
Yeah, and you're going to leave a mess behind.
That's right.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
The best gift you can give your family is your affairs in order.
It's very true.
Right?
Don't let them stress out or fight, right?
Yeah.
But there's some people that actually are like, no, I want them to fight after I'm gone.
No, yeah, well.
Some are like that.
That's their prerogative, right?
It actually is, right? That's the crazy part, right? We can't force them to have their affairs in order.
Right. So I am, I'm a member of Teamsters, and I also work within the county. And I've been an entrepreneur for years. And so my goal is to help thousands. My goal is to be a blessing for thousands. And the way I can do that is provide them a service that is ethical, that is going to be done quick, fast, and friendly. Right.
You got to have some pretty incredible stories, like being in this space for sounds like almost 20 years, right?
Right. So I've been a estate planning specialist for over 14 years. A company I am partnered with is out of Costa Mesa. And yes, I've had some interesting stories. One of them was I was servicing a client out in Corona, and two of the sisters were present while father was signing his declaration of trust, his will, his power of attorney, his advanced health care directive, his trust certification, because he had his own property. And it got a little ugly, quick.
And you're sitting right there.
And I had to say, hold on.
See, these are stories I like.
Yeah.
This is because
It
you get a glimpse
ugly.
into something you normally wouldn't see, right? We get to
but
hear.
you thought they would be on best behavior, you know. And so one sister started saying something to the other sister, snide, you know, and dad is trying to keep everything cool, and he said, okay, we'll talk about that when she leaves. And the one sister that wouldn't stop, and next thing you know, they're at it. And I said, I have to excuse myself because I will not be a part of this. And they were tussling a little bit, and I had to step out, and they had to come and get me, and we finished up the process so dad can finish signing his documents, or it wasn't going to get done.
Wow.
But, you know, we want to prevent those type of things, right?
Yeah.
And
that's what dad's trying to do there. Dad's literally trying to prevent them from fighting. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, they're fighting before, right?
and dad's probably thinking, hey, man, I'm not gone yet, man.
Right.
Like, I get to decide.
Right. So with my program that I help people with is making sure that they have either revocable trust, reverse, update, changeable, and we call them living trusts because there's a lot of documents in a portfolio that you use while you're living.
Right, right. What else do you do? Because I know you said it's Notary Max Plus and a lot more.
Right. So document preparation. You know, also helping people with getting their affairs in order at their home. So I assist them in that way. I found a passion also helping people with sometimes making those phone calls that are difficult, Social Security, to the VA office, you know, helping them look at their mortgages, things like that. So my main thing is that I want to make sure that people are secure and they're securing their assets for their families so the families do not have to go to probate. That's the main thing. And anything over, let's just say in California, properties over 50,000, it's going to go to probate if it's not in a living trust, right? If your deeds have not been processed at the county recorder's office, they're going to go to probate. And so your family is sitting around
Trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And we could have taken care of our business, you know, while we're able, while we're cognate, not incapacitated. Because when people become incapacitated, now you have to deal with attorneys and making sure that you're in charge of certain paperwork, right?
You know, a couple weeks ago, we actually had a public guardian on the show. That obviously, when someone's deemed incapacitated, and they don't have anybody to do it for them,
right?
Then a public guardian, a deputy public guardian, is appointed to do it. We actually had one. Carla was on the show just a couple weeks ago,
and that's
talking
good.
about the job that because that's
Yes.
a county job as well.
Well, see, this is one of the things that I share with families is when we're born, usually a family member would get birth certificates, Social Security cards for that person that was born, right? And then when that child becomes 16, we usually do a party, get a car, get a driver's license, right? But we don't think that anyone over the age of 18 needs to have a will portfolio, because at 18, you're an adult. Parents can't come in, girlfriends can't come in, wives can't come in and take care of your affairs if you become incapacitated, because you're an adult. So we, at the age of 18 is the best time, is that we will now make sure that our family has all those other great things, but also let's sit down and take care and change the mindset of families that we're going to make sure you have a will portfolio.
It'd be a nice gift, right?
Right, with
Yeah.
a will, a power of attorney.
So when you can't think of
advanced
what to
healthcare
give your kid
directive.
at 18, this is something that is
Or
a gift.
grandparents can give it as a gift, right? Because you
Great
want to make
idea.
sure that when they go off to college, that they have those documents. If they have to travel, that they have these documents that are in place, so no one has to make decisions on that person's behalf, right? So as we become adults, we already have the mindset of teaching our families and changing that, and that's what we need to have more of.
Well, Nicole, man, I learned something new today. Thank you very much. Just got a couple minutes left here. Is there anything you want to close on? What a great story. Thank you for pointing it out. I know you didn't give names or anything. I'm just visualizing that scenario and what happened. You're like, exit stage left. Let me know when you work it out.
Right.
But, really appreciate you coming on the show. Also appreciate the work that you do as a public employee
Yes.
in the probation department. I believe you are a law and justice officer.
Office assistant.
Office
yes.
assistant,
Mhm.
and then a TA partner. So hopefully this helps you in your entrepreneurship.
Right.
And anything you want to close on?
You know, let's make sure that we sit down with our families. I want to leave with that, and we start having the conversations. Sometimes we don't want to have the conversations. We have blended families that come together. We don't want to have the conversations. We have families that are fighting. We don't want to have the conversation. We need to start having the conversations of what you want to do with your assets when you transition.
Thank you for the advice. It's actually very, very good advice, and one that not a lot of people put enough time into. And,
Right.
and if you have any questions regarding that, we know to call you, Nicole.
That's right.
And your number is 909-913-3336. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And obviously you could be reached on our Teamster Advantage app.
Yes.
Get into the app, try to find what is MBP, and it's correct, MBP.
Notary Max Plus.
Notary Max Plus. And with that, we're going to take a quick break for us to transition. This is Randy Corrigan and the Worker Power Hour on the 1932 Broadcast Network, airing live from San Bernardino. Take it away, Mark.
For KCAA 1050 AM NBC News Radio and Express 106.5 FM, reconstruction of the Mount Vernon Avenue Bridge across the BNSF rail yards in San Bernardino is nearly completed. The original 86-year-old bridge was closed in 2020 over concerns of earthquake vulnerability and was demolished. The reconstruction has reconnected the southern and northern sections of San Bernardino's west side. The bridge is a vital link for residents, visitors, students, and businesses. A ribbon cutting is planned on August 23rd. A 2.5-month-long investigation has cleared Football Hall of Famer John Elway of any wrongdoing in a golf cart accident that killed his longtime agent. Jeffrey Sperbick, 62, died April 30th of injuries he suffered 4 days earlier in La Quinta. Sheriff's investigation have termed the incident a tragic accident with no evidence of criminal activity or intent. Sperbick reportedly fell from the golf cart that Elway was driving. The California Department of Education says the number of students experiencing homelessness rose by almost 20,000 in 2024. This is the highest rate of student homelessness in a decade. The numbers vary widely among school districts. Students are considered homeless if they lack a regular and adequate nighttime residence. This includes those who are living on the streets, in shelters, in motels, in cars, or doubled up with other families due to economic hardship. Weather in the Inland Empire about the same as yesterday, with highs in the high 80s and overnight lows in the low 60s. For NBC News Radio, KCAA 1050 AM and Express 106.5 FM, I'm Lillian Vasquez, and you're up to date. KCAA, keeping California alert and aware.
This is the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan on the Teamsters 1932 Broadcast Network. We're back. Nicole's great.
She had a lot of great information.
Yeah, she's great. She's a very good reminder of what we need to do.
I would have loved to have been in that room watching those sisters fight.
Oh boy. I could just imagine.
I wouldn't want to be dad and go to sleep with one of them in the house.
I'm sure Dad had a few words to say afterwards.
I'm sure.
So, in Worker Power Hour news, I think the first thing I alluded to earlier in the show is Amazon drivers in the City of Industry joined the Teamsters. Just this morning, a majority demanded recognition on Amazon and their delivery service partner in the City of Industry. I believe it's called Metro Delivery Service Partner there. And congratulations to that group. I'm going to see if I can pull it up and actually see the number of drivers in that as I'm reading here. Sorry, I'm just trying to skim through this and see if I see a number pop out at me. I don't see a number. I'm assuming it's somewhere between 60 and 120 drivers at that location. So congratulations to them. Typically the DSPs are about that size. And, it's another one in a long list of those that have done this, and you're going to see more in the near future doing this very same thing. Workers are being fed up. As I pointed out earlier, a worker at Amazon, a driver at Amazon cannot afford to buy a home in the neighborhoods they're delivering in, but a UPS driver typically can. I'm not going to say a UPS driver can buy a home in any neighborhood they deliver in, but it's a majority, if not almost any neighborhood they deliver in, that they could afford to buy a home in. There's just a handful of neighborhoods they can't. And, that's the model that companies need to get connected to versus this. And I really, again, I appreciate my daughter texting me and telling me she's listening live. I was actually wondering, I was following her because I know that she was leaving Europe and was hopping on a plane. She was studying abroad for a few months and was just kind of following, that's what dads do, right? And to see that she wanted to listen to the show. So which means she's on the East Coast right now. So she added up, it's 5 there. Oh, Dad's show must be going on. So let me connect. Well, it's not 5, it's now 6, but she knows what time the show is on. So anyway, I don't know. It always makes a father proud. So thanks, kid. Once again, sorry to beat that drum, but we got to do that when we have pride in what our kids do. In other news, Worker Power news, we have District Council 47 and Parker, which is the mayor for Philadelphia, reach a tentative agreement. And AFSCME, District Council 47, and Mayor Cheryl Parker, the administration, have reached a tentative agreement on a new contract, avoiding the potential for another municipal worker strike in the span of a month. They just ended their 8-day strike last Wednesday morning before our show aired because they knew we were going to bring the heat to them, right? Anyway, it'd be great to get to that level at some point. It'd be awesome that if we had so many labor unions, as I talked with Linda here a few minutes ago that had shows too, and we had a labor like network, radio network, where it was 24-hour labor news shows, different unions all day, and that millions of people listened to it to where you were able to mobilize people quickly. It'd be awesome if we really did. So it's okay to dream. It was great if we had that. So it's okay to dream, and that's what I dream of, is that we turn this really cool, fun platform into a powerful message for workers that we can check corporate America or any employer's overreach and what they're doing wrong. The next news article, many of you may have seen this, is a California farm worker who fell from the greenhouse roof during a chaotic ice raid has died. A farm worker who fell from the greenhouse of the roof during a chaotic ice raid this week at the California cannabis facility died Saturday of his injuries. Jaime Alinas, 57, is the first known person to die during one of the administration's ongoing immigration enforcement operations. Yesenia Dura, Alinas' niece, and the union UFW confirmed his death. So very sad day, really feel for the family. It's had to deal with that, and it's unfortunate that the situation turned the way it did. But it's clearly when these things happen, it creates a lot of chaos. People start running, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when the farm worker staff member comes on here shortly and fills us in on some of the things that are currently happening right now. Some other news that I think y'all need to pay attention to. This one's got me very, very concerned, and that is North Carolina Rep. Mark Harris and Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn revealed on Tuesday in the Daily Caller that they will each introduce the National Education Association Charter Repeal Act in their respective chambers. So one will be introduced in Congress and one will be introduced in the Senate. The bill aims to revoke the federal charter for the largest teachers union in the country. The authors say, the authors say, I got to keep from busting out laughing when I read this. The authors say that they want to eliminate the union charter due to partisan politics over education. Of anybody right now to claim they want to do something like this because of partisan politics. Oh my. And you want to do it. You want to eliminate the charter of a national union. You want to take a position to put into law to get rid of NEA. Crazy. Insane. You got something you want to, what are you doing? Oh, you're getting ready to dump me. No, I'm not. I promise. I'm not gonna make. I am shocked at this whole. Oh, well, we want to eliminate the partisan part of this. In a day like today, you got some values, really? Holy smokes! And quite frankly, if you want to talk partisan, almost half of the teachers that are part of NEA are Republicans. And almost half are Democrats. So, this ain't about partisan politics. This is about you gunning for collective bargaining and trying to villainize teachers, probation workers, 911 dispatchers, all these public employees that make sure that this country and your community is taken care of every single day. Look, the guy that runs Tesla, I'm not going to say his name, he gets $8 billion a day in tax money, credited incentives, some sort of give back. 8 million. I'm sorry. Did I say billion? My apologies. It's 8 million. I said a day. A day. That's crazy that it's $8 million a day. It's like $92 a minute or something. Insane. But I want to attack teachers. I want to attack all these other people who are making sure that our community thrives. Am I going to say every teacher is great? No, but I can tell you Most of them are, and they love their kids and they love what they do, and they're doing the best they can to take care of their community. With that in the news, the Teamsters expand, in IBT news, the Teamsters expand a national strike against Republic. And the striking Teamsters at Republic Services this week are dramatically escalating their war against the waste giant by extending picket lines to Los Angeles and a major landfill in Ohio. The strike forced by Republic Services will now impact over 2 million Los Angeles residents. In Youngstown, Ohio, trucks and trains carrying 12 million pounds of trash per day from New York to New Jersey will be unable to unload at one of the nation's largest landfills. So congrats to those workers and good luck also. You don't go on strike and take it lightly. At the end of the day, they're obviously fighting for something that we all can respect and make sure that not only we have dignity on the job, but affordable health care, and make sure that those plans are good, robust plans. And they're not settled yet, so that strike is still ongoing. And in a few minutes here, I am going to have Armando from the United Farm Workers on, and as soon as I wrap up this next piece of news, so hang tight. We're going to bring him into the show. He's going to pop in onto the screen where we split it here in a second. But really appreciate Armando coming on from the United Farm Workers to talk about what's going on there. Bus workers at George Bush International Airport joined the Teamsters. Bus workers at the George Bush Intercontinental Airport the George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston have voted unanimously to join Teamsters Local 988. The new Teamsters work for the joint employers, which is TransDev Transportation and REM Services, and provide transportation for the airport's rental car center. Teamsters play an integral role in the operations of one of Texas' busiest airports, Robert Melee, who happens to be a friend of mine, president of Local 988. After years of stagnant wages and false promises, these workers saw what other TransDev workers were getting as Teamsters and decided it was time to get what they deserved as well. So this victory would not have been possible without our determined new members and the strong partnership with the International Union's organizing department. So congratulations to those workers, those bus drivers at George Bush Intercontinental Airport. A little history here for you. I helped organize a nationwide unit 30-some years ago for the mechanics. Many of them worked at that actual airport, so I was actually out working it was actually Hobby International Airport before it was called George Bush Airport many, many years ago. So as an organizer, it was one of the many things that I did, and always have a fond memory of helping workers get to a better place. Those mechanics are still union to this day. They were Continental Airlines. They are now been merged with United, and again, it's a good relationship with them. So with that, I have my next guest on, which is Armando Elenis, the Secretary-Treasurer of the United Farm Workers. And it looks like we're going to be having him split the screen, and I will take care of what this looks like here so none of you actually text me. Armando, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you for joining. What do you think? We got our own live radio show. It's not just a podcast. It's actually a live radio show, so you're live on the air. Be careful what you say. we would have to dump you. And, we're really excited about, getting this sort of message out to the general public. Yeah, I'll move it over in a minute, Robert. Armando, go ahead and introduce yourself. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Armando Elenis. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the United Farm Workers, and just excited to be on the show. And I see that. Congrats on being a live show versus just a podcast.
I appreciate you labeling it like that, because sometimes people say, "Oh, Randy, you got a podcast," and I'm like, "Zip it." Yes, we have a podcast, but we have a live show first, and then it turns into a podcast. So thank you for recognizing that, Armando. It's a lot of fun running a live show, because obviously we get the radio. We're at, obviously AM and FM radio, and we hit a very large area in the Inland Empire, which, as you know, is a big metropolitan area. And, we know a lot of people are just listening, and we're just trying to make sure that we're connected to the community. We know working people listening to that show, or at least listening to the radio on their way to and from work. So
definitely. Yeah, no, it's especially in these times, communicating with folks into what's happening in the ground, and what's happening with everything across the country right now, especially under this administration, it's really important.
Yeah, and we got to meet people where they are as far as communications are concerned. Some people use the radio, some people it's digital, some people it's, and some people still do the newspaper. I actually love the newspaper. It's just hard to find one, But in communications, you have to try to figure out how to meet people where they are. Some people will only do things through an app on their phone. They search it out that way, or they.
Well, believe me, I'm a huge believer in that, and especially with United Farm Workers and the workers that we deal with, whether they be migrant workers and that are here, or they be guest workers that are coming from other countries to do the work here. We very much aware of that, and so we're always trying to figure out how to meet people where they're at, irregardless of technology, and sometimes where can they be most comfortable being able to talk freely, because some of the farm workers are obviously living on the grower property, and sometimes it's almost like as if they were like on a plantation of some type, where everything's controlled in terms of who can come in, who can go out, what can exactly they do. So so I'm very much aware of that.
Yeah, let's not run this over. Let's actually unpack what you just said. And I think that not a lot of people realize the dynamic that you just referred to. Like there is this shift that's moving back into a space like you just described, where people believe no one works and lives in these conditions anymore. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You just described that people that are guests, they're allowed to work there, right? They've been asked to come to work, and they're legal. They're of a sort of legal status. They're not a citizen, and they're living on the property of where the farm is, doing very, very difficult work, extremely hard work. And then there's a control over how they come and go, where many cases where they use the restroom, where they congregate, where they eat. Kind of unpack a little bit of that so that our listeners can fully recognize how hard it is to work in those conditions.
Oh no, it's I mean, I'm dealing with, and I'm not sure where you're, like you said, you're Inland Empire, but we're dealing with workers across the country, whether it be in California, Oregon, Washington, New York, and you could purposely almost drive by, and all you see is, for example, an orchard, and the housing is buried deep inside the orchard, and where people are just totally unaware that they have maybe 100 people living inside an orchard, where they're being housed, and for somebody sometimes to be able to visit those workers, they have to request permission in advance. They have to name exactly who they're going to talk to, how long they're going to be there, and it's really scary for some folks, because and so therefore, for workers to be able to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody, they really can't, because, and then the boss will sometimes have cameras and things of that nature, where they're really monitoring exactly who goes in, who goes out, and they're telling them what they can do, what they cannot do, and they pack them in, whether it be 4 to a room, 6 to a room, and I've seen situations where workers are in like in a warehouse type of situation, where they may have bunk beds, and workers are lining up blankets to just get some type of privacy, as kind of like as a privacy screen. And if they want to go to the restroom, the restrooms maybe are going to be outside, where you want to go take a shower, you got to go outside, in the elements, and run back to put clothes back on. So I mean, it's really not the best type of situation.
Hey, listeners, we are not talking about a movie from 1925. We are talking about what is happening in 2025, today. This is happening right now. This is a repeat of what had happened in this country that many of us, or not us, but our predecessors had said this is not acceptable to do. And it is literally happening as we speak right now. And I think it's really important for our listeners to try to empathize and respect that how difficult this is. And then you add this other layer that's going on with the ICE raids. But most importantly, I think it's or not to put importance on one or the other, but I think to first showcase is this is the condition that these growers think is acceptable.
Oh, and they, and you know, and in within that ICE, if you look at the rhetoric where they're saying, "Oh, we want to have a legal workforce," and what they mean is, you know, well, we want to be able to, bring more guest workers, which is okay in one sense, but without the protections, because they actually want to eliminate the housing. They want to eliminate some of the protections that the very few protections that they have. The growers are trying to figure out how they can eliminate that, and they'll use code words like it's too cumbersome, the program is too complicated. But what it really means is I just don't want to pay, and I don't want to provide the few basic things that we have to provide. And so, and with that comes control. So I think it's really insane in terms of if you're able to, when you look at it, like, would you live in those conditions, having to be there, being away from your families for 8 to 10 months away, and kind of pocketed in a space where you really have no control. And then if you want to go somewhere, well, there's no transportation because you got to rely on the grower providing a van maybe once a week and go to the store, right?
And what most people don't realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I misspeak legally here, that not all states protect the worker right to organize for farm workers. In other words, when the National Labor Relations Act was first written, they actually wrote out farm workers because of the tobacco industry and a number of other industries. They said, no, that industry does not deserve the right to collectively bargain or be represented. And many states, now California obviously has a Farm Worker Act, but not all states do. And so like this isn't like, well, these workers can just go organize. In some states, there is no rule for them to organize.
No, that's correct. I mean, there's only actually 3 states in the country that give farm workers the right to organize. Hawaii actually was first, and then California, and now New York has enacted legislation that gives farm workers the right to organize. And so, and yeah, it actually stems from racism, because at the time when these laws were being made, the NLRA and others, the reality is a lot of the farm workers, especially in the South, happen to be black. And so the Congress members at the time could not fathom giving black workers the same rights as white workers. And so they literally said, no, this will not apply to agriculture. This will not apply to domestic employees. And so, the right to organize, the right to overtime, a lot of things that we take for granted, the right to have, workers' compensation, all these things that we just kind of take for granted, were written out way back in the 30s. And so, the UFW and other organizations have been fighting state by state to try to, give workers those rights.
Yeah, thank you for spelling that out, and forgive me for not realizing it was only 3 states. I knew it was a small number, but my goodness, like what a learning opportunity this is for all of our listeners to recognize, like one of the toughest jobs. Only 3 states legally protect its right to organize. Now, I always believe, regardless of the rules, workers can organize, and if we withhold our labor, we can shut down whatever we need to shut down, because that's exactly how we had laws. We created laws to begin with, because if we're afraid to actually exercise that right, then we never have a right to exercise. And my point is workers are going to have to be very assertive in this space, and clearly, literally under the gun, in a lot of cases, or under this pressure that the employer or boss or cameras now that have created this sort of pressure situation where workers are like, look, I'm on a guest status here, or I'm just here trying to work. And a lot of times, if not almost all the time, they're completely exploited.
No, that's right. That's right. And look, and like you said, a lot of these workers are legally here, but unfortunately, the fear level is so high that they're really don't feel like they have the right to complain, or they'll feel like they have the right to say anything, because for a lot of these employees, they know that if they say something, they're not coming back. They're not bringing them back, right? And so that's a huge amount of income that they would be losing for their families. It's just like a farm worker here, that's undocumented, or a farm worker here that's unable to they're not able to just jump to another farm and move on as easily as some would think. So unfortunately, they put up with a lot of conditions. They put up with a lot of abuse, and that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah, and I say we unpack this for a second and we just have this quick talk. Like, there are some people that say, yeah, policy-wise, get them all out of the country. There shouldn't be anybody here. Clearly, that's not something I believe in or unions stand for. But let's just hypothetically unpack that logical or illogical argument as we would see it. And for those of you that may be listening that think that that's okay, you run everybody out, no one's going to do this work, and then you don't get your produce or you don't get the work done, and you're now complaining that you don't have this, or it's significantly more expensive because the supply and demand situation has cost it to where whoever's importing it from another country is rising the cost dramatically, and there'll probably be some tariffs on it as well.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're paying more for a bucket of strawberries than you are for steak, or you're paying significantly more for some things that you're not used to having to pay more for, and that's the reality of where that is. And so regardless of what side of the policy you may be on, the reality is this is what's happening is just not good for these workers.
No, and the thing is, we do have to care, because what most people don't realize is these are the workers, like you said, either they're picking the strawberries, or for now, like right now near the Inland Empire, the table grape season is almost wrapping up. What most people don't realize, hey, before you pop, that table grape in your mouth, understand this: it was a farm worker's hands that actually picked the grape, packed it, put it in a little baggie, then put it in a little box, so that box could be taken to a warehouse, a cooler somewhere, and it goes to the supermarket. The grocery clerk, takes out the baggies, makes it nice and pretty on the grocery aisle, and then the consumer goes and buys the bag of grapes. Well, in that whole entire process, the only person that actually touched the grape was a farm worker, and then and there was nothing done. They weren't washed, they weren't cleaned. All and so you're taking a grape and you're putting it right in your mouth. Well, if we're not caring about what happens to those farm workers, and it's the same process with table grape, the same process with table grapes. The last hands that touched that fruit were farm workers' hands, and so we need to care about what happens. And the reality is also that there's not like people are lining up to do the work that workers do, and so I think workers themselves, farm workers themselves, say, hey, you want to work in agriculture? Come on down. There's plenty of jobs, there's plenty of opportunity, but they're not. They simply aren't. They aren't simply coming.
I say we get these elected officials that are making some of these crazy decisions to go out in the farms and actually do the work. Have them do it for just a week. Like, why don't you do the work for just a couple days and experience what and go sleep in those quarters that you talked about. Be in that environment. Don't get to your little comfy spot. Recognize what these people are living through every single day.
Actually, I would just say, hey, come and pick for a day, because I've been out there. I've taken news producers. I've taken news anchors. I've taken also some electeds to come out, and after a couple hours, they're dying. they're
That's right.
dropping like
Better
flies.
hurry up
And
and
I
get
said,
back
look,
in their news
I
van
said,
with air conditioning.
yeah, they're like, oh my God. I said, and if they are able to stay there, they're like, they just can't keep the pace. So I was like, look, if you want to make some money, you got to go fast. And so, try to pick in tomatoes right now. The tomato crop just started, and picking those tomatoes, and you watch those workers and you think most people are thinking, oh, that's unskilled labor. No, it's not. If you got to know exactly what you're picking, you got to know exactly how to remove the stem, how to do the particular work, and be fast. So it's skilled labor. Do we need to improve the conditions? Of course we do.
Look, there is a skill to working hard all day long in the heat under difficult circumstances. I don't care what anybody says. Every job requires a skill, including that job, which, quite frankly, they have a skill that most people don't have because they can't sit out in the heat for 10, 12, 14 hours. They're not going to be able to do that. Most people that would, out of their mouth, say that's unskilled work don't even understand what skill is.
Yeah, no, come on down and try it and tell me it's unskilled. And you'll see right away the dexterity, the movements that they have to make. It is skilled worker, and
It's
it
a
takes
craft.
it takes
It's a
yeah, it takes a
craft.
while to learn.
That's right.
Yeah.
It takes a long time for it to learn. This is a skill that's sometimes handed down from a generation to the next generation, and they teach one another how to make sure that they're maximizing their movement, saving their body, staying hydrated, and making sure that they don't, obviously die in a very difficult situation.
Right. No, and so I would challenge anybody to come on down, but because right now, unfortunately, our community, especially farm workers, are being terrorized. They're being labeled as criminals. Before they were deemed essential, now they're being deemed criminals for the simple fact of wanting to provide for their families, wanting to work. As like. So I don't know. I don't. Where's the criminality of actually working and trying to provide for your family and doing it actually an honest day's work?
Man, you hit the nail right on the head. What 5 years? What we look from July of 2020 and how much everybody was appreciating how essential these workers are, to 5 years later, people calling them criminals. And I actually believe that a vast majority of Americans don't think that. I actually believe that listeners don't think the ignorant sort of stuff in which we're having to deal with. Unfortunately, that is being twisted, and politics are being played, and people are being convinced of something in a lot of cases that's not true. The reality is, if you just break this down to the work that's being done, how difficult it is. And I think the point you were trying to make is there are plenty of these jobs available if you'd like to come down and check them out, right? Like if you want to come try to figure out how to do it, especially if you're so darn critical of it. So, we don't see all those people that are running their mouths lined up to fill those spots, right?
Yeah. No, and we've actually, I remember years back, we ran a campaign saying, actually we called it Take Our Jobs. He said, come on down, take our jobs. And the workers were saying, if you think it's so easy, if you think that you can do it. And we had about 1 million people indicating that they were interested in doing something, inquiring about how to do the work. 12 people actually showed up. And on day one, they were asked, what do you think? They're like, oh yeah, I'm out of here. As soon as I can, I'm out of here.
That's crazy. Well, hey, we just got a couple minutes left. Really appreciate you coming on the Worker Power Hour. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to cover in this last couple minutes?
Again, I just want to thank everybody for listening, and keep in mind all those farm workers that are out there harvesting the fruits, especially as the temperatures right now over 100 degrees, but yet they're working out there and under the threat of being picked up, under the threat of being terrorized, but yet they're going to work because they really don't feel like they have a choice. They don't have the safety net. They don't have they don't have that money to stash away where they can say, oh, I can just stay home. So they're really literally risking every day going to work and not coming back home to their families and their kids for the simple fact of wanting to be able to work.
Armando, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for your advocacy. And please thank all those workers for their hard work. I know you do that. We're just trying to, have the energy run through you. We really do appreciate the hard work that you just spelled out. We appreciate the work that they do every day. And we want to thank you for advocating for them on a regular basis. We have been joined by Armando Elenis, which is the Secretary-Treasurer of the United Farm Workers. Appreciate you coming on the show. You have been on the Worker Power Hour. Thanks again, Armando. Let me wrap up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
So what are we doing to build worker power in the Inland Empire? I think that this last segment really shows us like how difficult some of this is. You guys got to mute him real quick, or actually close him out. So perfect. Anyway, we're building worker power in the Inland Empire. And how are we building worker power? We're talking to our friends. We're talking to our neighbors. We have the billboards. We have the buses. We have the Think a Teamster campaign. We have the radio show. We have something great coming, which is going to be Worker Power Radio coming here pretty soon, too. At the end of the day, it's about communicating, educating, and getting other workers to join in this space. I'm excited about this platform. I'm excited about what the potential is and what more we can do. And even in the face of some of these very difficult situations, we can actually do something about it. And what we can do about it is participate, get involved, educate, mobilize, agitate, be militant, and convince other workers to withhold their labor. And how can you do that? You talk to your friends. You talk to your family. You talk to your coworkers. You organize a union. You build worker power. This is Randy Corrigan. This is the Worker Power Hour on the Teamsters 1932 Broadcast Network, airing live from San Bernardino. Long-time organizer, first-time radio host. Signing off. Take it away.